Hey, welcome to my channel Vibe and SG. I'm your host Ari. So I moved to Singapore recently and the first thing I did was find an apartment. I know it's a difficult task. So I thought, hey, why not share this information with you guys? Some of you might be looking for an apartment or trying to move to Singapore for the first time. In this video, I'm going to share some essential tips and tricks so that you can find your perfect home in Singapore. Trust me, you will wish you knew this before you started your apartment hunt journey. So we'll be breaking down the entire process in 10 simple steps. First step is estimating your rental budget. So this is where we'll see how much percentage of your salary should be kept as your rent. Second is knowing your needs. You'll have to decide what all requirements do you have from your apartment. Third is finding the right property. I'll show you how to filter properties according to your criteria from thousands of listings. Fourth is the process of contacting the agents, the kind of information that you need to keep handy. Fifth is viewing the apartment. I'll share some tips and tricks while viewing the apartment, what you should keep in mind. Sixth is negotiating rent. Usually how much of the rent can be negotiated and how you can do that. Understanding lease terms. It can be different based on if you are a foreigner or you're a Singaporean. Then understanding hidden cost. Exactly if there are any other cost apart from just the rent. Then the cultural consideration for both HDBs and condos, and finally moving in to your rental place. First thing first, let's talk about estimating your rental budget. Singapore market is a fast moving market. All the good properties that you will come across will have a lot of competition and it can quickly go off the market. So you need to know exactly what your budget is so that you don't waste a lot of time looking at houses which does not fall into your budget range. So I'll take you through how you should estimate your rental budget. We will discuss the 30% rule of rent in Singapore. This suggests that you should spend no more than 30% of your net income on housing costs. So why 30%? This allows you to balance your budget, covering other essential expenses like groceries, transportation, healthcare, and also you can set aside some amount for your savings. I'll take you through an example. This is Lisa. She's eyeing a house whose rent is around 3000 SGD. For this to happen, her monthly income should be around $10,000 and this should be pre-tax, which makes Lisa's annual income around 140,000 SGD. So if you want to set a budget for renting, remember the 30% rule. Your rental budget should not exceed 30% of your net income. Moving on to chapter number 2, knowing your needs. You have to define some criteria which you think are necessary while selecting an apartment. For example, size of the apartment, commute time, amenities, lifestyle or community. These are some of the criteria which can help you decide your perfect apartment. Under each of these criteria, you must define what is okay to have, what is a must have, and which is absolutely a no-go. For example, while selecting the size of the apartment, we were not okay to have a studio apartment. We were okay to have a 1-bedroom apartment, but we absolutely love to have a 2-bedroom apartment. So putting the apartment under various buckets and rating them will help you decide which is one of your favorite options. Similarly, for commute time, you need to decide whether you want something close to the public transport or you are okay with having a longer commute time. For lifestyle choices, all the HDBs will have hawker centers nearby, whereas the condos will have malls nearby. So bucketize accordingly which option do you really need. The HDBs offer a mixed community where they have a quota for different ethnicity, but on the other hand, condos do not have any such quota, so you can have people from the same community as well living in a condo. Choose accordingly. For amenities, if you have any requirement as such, for kids you need schools, or for elderly people you need hospitals, so make that a priority to bucketize your needs properly. So based on this, select what you need from an apartment and rate them accordingly when you visit the apartment. Let's move on to the next chapter, finding the right apartment. So where to find apartments for rent? I found websites like Property Guru, 99co as great sites to start your apartment hunt journey. You will find plenty of listings over there. Personally, I found my property through Property Guru. I believe it has more number of fresh listings, but both of them will offer plenty of listing choices and you can go over them and find your perfect apartment. So before looking through all the listings, you should always consider researching the budget or the amount it will take to rent an apartment in Singapore. Do you know Singapore publishes its own HDB rental market data in its own government website? So head over to data.gov.sg. Here you will find rent of all HDB flats throughout Singapore for past couple of years. You can do your own research here. I have made a video where I have analyzed the HDB rental data for all Singapore for past couple of years. Go check that out. If you are looking for some room sharing options where you want some housemates or roommates to share your rent with, you can find options in Carousel, Facebook groups or ilivesg.com. So these are certain websites where people post their room which are available for renting purposes. Many of them provide rooms without a broker as well. So you can check these websites out in case you are looking for room sharing options. Now let's move on to tips for finding the right apartment. This is where I'll take you through the Property Guru website and show you some of the important tips and tricks that you can apply while searching for your apartment. So let me take you through the Property Guru website. Here I will show you some tips and tricks as how to find your perfect apartment. First you need to go to the rent section. Just click on search. It will take you through all the listings that's currently available in Singapore right now. Here you can see there are 34,141 properties available for rent, but you need to narrow down your search result. You can do that by applying some filters on your search results. So just click on filters, put your minimum and maximum budget. For example, if you are eyeing a house whose monthly rent is around 2000 SGD, you need to put a minimum filter of around 1000 SGD so that you can filter down properties which you are not interested in. And subsequently, don't put just the maximum amount of your budget, keep some buffer room as well. This will allow you not to miss listings which are closer to your budget range. And also there is a potential negotiation factor in the future which you need to account for. That's why you need to keep a buffer in your maximum budget. Now here I will put 2500 as my maximum budget. Second thing that you need to do is search by property type. Now I would suggest you to look at one type of property at a single time. For example, if you are looking at condos, just apply the condo filter and then look at all the condos so that you can compare one condo with another. Similarly, do the same with landed as well as HDB properties. So I put a filter for condos here. Click on apply filter. Now go to the bedroom section. So here you will need to select whether you want an entire unit or you are okay with having a room as well. In case you do not want a room in a particular apartment, you can just click on entire unit. This will show only apartments which are empty right now and do not currently host anybody else. Now I would tick off any requirement that is not necessary. For example, I do not need a studio apartment, so I will just click on studio and remove that from our filter list. Now another filter that you need to apply is location. So here you can search by MRT district, HDB estate, but I will go with MRTs. Click on search by MRT. So this is the Singapore map. So here you need to select the MRTs properly. For example, you need to know which is your frequently traveled area, for example your workplace. So in case your workplace is in, for example, Nicole Highway, then you can check the nearby circle line for renting your apartment. In this case, let's go 3 stations ahead and 3 stations backward. So in this case, I will look at properties which are nearby to my work area and I do not have to change any MRT lines. But in case you're not able to fit the apartments in your budget, you can always go and extend along the MRT lines. So for now, I'll keep these MRT lines. There is a neat trick here. For example, any 6 or 7 MRT stations, it will take you approximately 20 minutes for travel. So if you want to spend less amount of time on traveling, I would suggest you to not go beyond 6-7 stations. Now this will show you all the apartment listings which are according to a filter criteria. So now again you have to sort these listings in a logical manner. So for that I'll go here and I'll sort it by price per square foot, low to high. I will not do a simple lowest price first. It will only show what is the minimum available budget that I have and all the condos that Property Guru recommends. But in this case I will select price per square feet from low to high. By this I'm ensuring that I'm getting bang for my buck and I'm getting the largest possible area for the price that is asking for. Now you can see these listings have the lowest price per square foot. For example, this one is 4.29 SGD per square foot. and similarly so on, it gets costlier per square foot. So once you see the listings, I'll put another filter on the minimum square foot available. So for example, I'll put a filter on minimum floor size around 300 square feet. Now I'll show all the listings which are above 300 square feet. So once you click on the listings, you can see how the apartment looks like. You can go through the photos, etc. Another thing that you need to check is the distance from the MRT. So this is 10 minutes walk from the nearest MRT station, and it's in the Serangoon MRT junction. Another neat feature in Property Guru is to check the time it takes for traveling. For example, you can go to saved places, add location here, and you can type in the address of your work location. For example, if you work near the Suntec city, just put Suntec as an example here and save as work and save it. So now it will show you how much time it takes to reach the particular place. For example, if you take public transport, it will take you 44 minutes. So now the next thing that you will do is scroll through and check on the shopping, healthcare, food, drinks, etc. What are the places nearby your location? So it says that these are the restaurants which are closer to this apartment. Now once you come to the saved places, click on see on maps. It will take you to the Singapore map. Here you can just look at the apartment where it is situated through Google Maps. You can also zoom in to your rented place to see how exactly the neighborhood looks like. Now you can go and check the street view as well if it is available. Click on the small person icon here at the bottom. These blue lines, click on any blue line here just in front of the apartment. Now you will be able to see how exactly the area looks like, what are the neighboring shops, neighboring amenities, and the neighborhood. So this will give you a fair idea as how your apartment is from the outside. And in some cases, for example, HDB's street view is also available inside the community, and you can check the apartment buildings as well. So the next thing that you need to do is prepare an Excel with all the shortlisted apartments that you really liked. For example, I had prepared an Excel when I was going through my apartment hunt journey. So here I had written all my house names, the area where it was situated, what was the nearest MRT region, what kind of an apartment it was it an HDB, a condo, landed room, etc., and how far the MRT was from the rented property. I listed down the time it took to reach the MRT station. Also for rating the apartment, I had some special criterias. For example, the size of the apartment, the time it takes to reach the office. These were some of the options like interior, neighborhood amenities that we filled post viewing the apartments. So for example, if we really liked the interior of the apartment, we rated it amazing. Or if it already came with a lot of furniture, then we gave it an amazing rating. So things like that, you need to prepare your own criteria. What exactly do you need from an apartment? The neighborhood region, whether it was lively enough for us to take a stroll in the evening, etc. Amenities, whether it was closer to the MRT station, shopping centers, grocery needs, etc. The rent of the apartment. Of course, it played a major role while shortlisting the apartment. When it was available from, whether it was ready to move, or what was the available date given by the realtor on the website. Any special note that we wanted to highlight after visiting our apartment. Of course, the link to that particular listing so that we don't forget which apartment were we referring to. When is our apartment viewing date given by the realtor, and overall rating, how exactly we liked the apartment and what was our feeling after viewing the apartment. So these are certain criterias that you need to prepare yourself, and trust me, you will visit a lot of apartments and you will forget how exactly you felt when you saw the apartment. So it is better to write it down and prepare a list after each viewing and update it throughout your apartment hunt journey. Next up is how to contact your agent. So the primary method to contact the agents is through WhatsApp only. Let me take you through the Property Guru app from where you can contact your agent. In the Property Guru app, you just need to go to the rent section and find your desired place and just hit on contact agent at the bottom. Here you can chat on WhatsApp and it will give you a pre-populated message with your interest in the property to the contact agent directly. Once you share your inquiry to the agent, they will ask you certain details that you will need to keep in handy. For example, your early moving date, duration of stay, which is the number of years you're trying to lease the apartment, number of persons staying, relationship with the person, occupation, nationality, your employment past type, if you have any pets or if you smoke, your budget, whether you need the apartment fully furnished or partially furnished. Remember, these can slightly vary from agent to agent, but these are the type of information that an agent would ask when you inquire them. Once you give the information, you can set up time with the agent for the apartment viewing. Moving on to the next chapter, viewing the apartment. So there are certain things that you need to keep in mind before you view the apartment. First thing is that you need to check the neighborhood before visiting the apartment. You can do so by going to Google Maps and checking through Street View. Second is you need to check for amenities nearby. You can do that either by Properties Guru's website and checking for local amenities like shops, groceries, eateries, etc. or through Google Maps and finding out nearby amenities. Okay, now next thing is when you actually go and see the apartment, the first thing that you do is take a note of the time that it takes from the public transport to reach the apartment. Second is when you reach the location, you just check the neighborhood condition, whether there is cleanliness all around, whether there are good walkways to walk on, and general feel of the neighborhood. Third is when you actually go into the apartment, check for any leakages, if the wall needs painting. These are like normal things that anybody would do once they see the apartment. The other thing is don't forget your kitchen requirements because you would be staying here for considerable amount of time, so you need to check these requirements as well. Next is if you have been provided with any furniture, just check for the condition of the furniture, if they need replacement or repair or if it looks old. If you find the furniture to be outdated or old, you can check with the agent if the owner will agree to upgrade the existing furniture or any equipment that is older. One thing that you need to keep in mind is the direction of the house. If you will get ample sunlight during the daytime. These things you will not keep in mind while visiting the apartment. Once you start living in it, you will realize that it does not get sun during the day or if it is too hot, etc. So just check for the directions and check where the morning sun is and how much light you would be getting during the daytime. And now if you like the apartment, do check for other things. For example, ask the agent what is the rent range, how much the owner is looking for as rent, any other lease requirement, if the owner is okay with 1 year or 2 years lease period, what is the maintenance cost of the apartment, for example the water, electricity, etc. What is the latest available date if it matches with your timing as well. And also check with the agent what are the nearest amenity centers, for example hawker centers, stores, restaurants, etc. So these are some of the things that you need to keep in mind while visiting the apartment, and you should definitely check with your agent about these requirements. So now you have seen the apartment. After visiting the apartment, you should definitely do these things. First is update your Excel. Remember the Excel that we prepared during our shortlisting procedure? You need to go back and update the Excel soon after you view the apartment. Now in the Excel, you need to rate each of the criteria that we have talked about. For example, the interior of the apartment, the neighborhood, the amenities, etc. You can define your own buckets for rating each of these criteria. For example, poor, okay, good, amazing, etc. And each of them means something. For example, if you rate interior as amazing, then the inside of the apartment probably has a good vibe. It has got furnitures and all the things that you visualize inside the apartment as per your liking. Apart from these ratings, you need to write down how you felt about the apartment. You can do so by dividing into pros and cons. For example, these are the things that I wrote for an apartment that I visited. The pros were the cozy interiors, hip neighborhood, the owner was okay with a 2 years lease period, it had a backyard, and overall the apartment was giving a good vibe. The cons were, for example, it was just outside the main road, the apartment had privacy issues, etc. So these are some pros and cons that will help you to remember how exactly the apartment was, and after looking into 10 or 20 of the apartments, you will forget the details how exactly the apartments were. Third is you need to give an overall rating based on your gut feeling. You can revise these ratings once you see more and more apartments, but you need to start giving the apartments a rating so that you can filter the apartments and create a list of shortlisted apartments. So next up is negotiating rent. I'll give you some tips to negotiate rent. So you need to scour the market in 2-3 weeks and look at all the apartments during this time period so that you can compare all apartments together and none of them would go out of the market. So during this 2-3 weeks duration, you can cover around 10 or 20 apartments. That would be enough to give you an idea and select the best apartment out of it. Next up, how much rent is negotiable? Generally, what I've seen is you can negotiate up to 10 to 15% of the rent amount. Agents do list the properties approximately 10 to 15% above the market price, so leave some buffer while budgeting on the rent amount. Next up is be mindful of the competition. So a lot of times these agents will tell you to visit the apartment during certain time window. During that time frame, they will call up a lot of interested parties, so you can just check out if the apartment is having any footfall, or if you see a lot of competition who is eyeing for this apartment. So be mindful of the competition. So in case you like the apartment, you can place an offer, or you can take some time to decide on it. Fourth is, don't be in any haste. Understand the lease terms properly. These agents will try to close the deal as soon as possible, but you need to take your time, understand each and everything, because it's a long-term decision that you are making. So weigh in all your options before deciding on the apartment. Lastly, it's okay to walk away in case you are unable to make up your mind. Singapore market is huge, and there would always be another apartment within your budget range. So don't be fixated on any particular property, and it's okay if you are unable to make up your mind. Okay, so now let's look at some lease terms. Understanding lease terms is important. Know the nitty-gritties that you're getting into, and if there are any hidden cost or something that can come up in the future as a problem. So first up is defect-free period of 30 days. So in Singapore, you will get a 30-day defect-free period. So in this time of 1 month, if anything goes wrong in the apartment, for example, if the light bulbs is not working properly, there's an issue with the aircon, or anything electrical or plumbing issues, etc. So if you notify the landlord within the first 30 days of renting the apartment, then it will be taken care without costing you anything. Post 30 days, the tenant would be responsible for fixing these issues. So make sure you try and test everything in the first 30 days itself. Second is diplomatic clause. So this allows any foreign tenant to terminate lease agreement in case they need to move out from the country. In this case, there won't be any penalties attached towards ending your lease agreement. So if you are a foreign worker who is working on any employment pass, make sure you put this clause in your lease agreement. So after expiration of the first 12 months, you can terminate the lease agreement by giving your landlord sufficient notice period. In this case, your deposit amount would be returned to you, and it would not be forfeited by the landlord. Okay, the third one is replacement and minor repairs. It's an agreement between you and your landlord. So in case there is a repair which is more than, let's say, $200 in this case, then it would be borne by the landlord. The first $200 shall be borne by the tenant itself. Fourth is aircon maintenance. This is something which is kind of mandatory and is required by all the landlords. They would ask you to get your aircon serviced at least once in every 3 months. So make sure as soon as you rent the apartment, you get a servicing agency that can come and do your air conditioning servicing every quarter. Fifth is regulation on pets. Now this can be something which might or might not be in your lease agreement. So in case if you have any pets, make sure you take permission from your landlord before keeping any pets within the apartment. Sixth is interest on late payment. Check for any clauses such as this which says that if there is a unpaid rent beyond 7 calendar days, then an interest rate of 10% would be charged on the rent unpaid. Seventh is stamp duty payment. Just check who is paying for the stamp duty. In a lot of cases, it is the tenant who would be responsible to pay the stamp duty. Make sure to check with your landlord or agent to complete the stamp duty once you do the payment. Make sure you go through all the lease terms in your agreement and understand each and every point. So now let us look at some hidden cost while renting the apartment. To understand the hidden cost, we need to go through the entire payment cycle. First is the issuance of letter of intent by the agent. So this is when you show an interest to rent the apartment. The agent will share the letter of intent with initial terms and conditions for you to sign up and give it back. Post giving the letter of intent, you need to deposit a good faith amount. That is usually a 1 month rent. So after you deposit your good faith amount, agent will go ahead and draft up the tenancy agreement. So this is the agreement which we will need to go through carefully, understand each and every point that is present in the tenancy agreement and come to an understanding with the landlord. Once you sign the tenancy agreement and share it back with the agent, they will ask for a security deposit and 1 month rent in advance. So usually in this entire process, you will end up paying around 3 months of rent before you even move in. So make sure you calculate this in your budget and keep this amount ready in your account. Now let us check what are the other hidden costs that comes with the apartment. So there is a rental stamp duty, which is approximately 0.4% of the total rent over the lease term. So for example, if your monthly rent is around $3,000 and you have got the apartment for a 2 years lease, so for 24 months you will be end up paying 72,000 SGD. So 0.04% of the total rent would be around 288 SGD. So you will be end up paying around 288 SGD over and above your deposit and advance rent. Another thing to take in notice is electricity and gas setup cost. So usually there is a range. So depending on the apartment that you chose, you will end up spending from $80 to $800. So make sure you keep this also into your account, as you will need your electricity and gas to begin with. Okay, now let's move on to cultural considerations. So you need to keep the cultural consideration into mind wherever you are moving into. For example, respect for diversity. So you need to be open-minded and embrace different cultures and traditions. If you are moving into HDB, then there would be a lot of different communities that will be staying together. Make sure you respect their values and traditions. Second is cultural sensitivities. Be aware and respectful of cultural differences. For example, there might be certain terms or actions that are considered as offensive in some other culture. So make sure that you are aware of such things and culturally aware. Third is cleanliness. Of course, this is a no-brainer. Make sure you have tidy and hygienic habits. Singapore government also imposes heavy fines in case you are not maintaining cleanliness. Then community guidelines in case you are moving into HDBs or any condos. You should read up the community guidelines that is maintained in the building premises and adhere to them. Last up, environmental awareness. Practice eco-friendly habits like cycling and walking, segregating your waste, etc. Finally, we are moving into the apartment. So some things to remember while moving in. First is you inspect the apartment, evaluate the conditions and feature of the apartment, whether it is in the same condition when you had seen the apartment, and if the owner had replaced the furnitures that you had asked for, etc. Second thing is set up utilities, arrange for electricity, water and internet services. Those will be your primary needs when you move into the apartment. Third, make sure you book movers and shifters early. Also check if you need to book the lift by going through the community guidelines. Schedule movers and packers so as to not to disturb your neighbors. Know the house rules, go through the condo and HDB guidelines and make sure you are adhering to them and not causing any problems. Register your address with different agencies. For example, in case you are a foreign worker, then ICA. Update your address in their mobile plan, etc. Know the parking rules in case you have any vehicle. So these are something that you need to keep in mind when you move in. That's it from my video. Hope it was informational and you got your queries answered. Make sure to like the video so that I can make more of such useful videos for you in the future. Do subscribe to the channel. Adios amigos.